Let's see. So, let's just do a quick wrap up on considering the true cost, and then we're going to wind up. Our last 4 free resources are places to go for more information about the technology that might be useful to you. So, in considering the true cost of something, so you want to first think about the tools themselves as an investment. So saving everybody on staff 10 minutes per day can in fact be a huge savings. So 10 staff members, 10 minutes a year, or sorry, 10 minutes a day, 250 days a year, accounts to about 10 weeks of full-time staff. So it can really add up to important amounts of savings. But of course, you also need to consider the costs, and not just the cost of the tool, but the time to test tools, to make decisions, to convince your organization, and the ease of setup and use. So if a tool is really a pain to set up and to get up and running, then that is a cost, and it's a time cost, which is important. It's also, if it's going to, it's a free tool, but it's going to take each of your users 2 minutes more a day because it's a pain, that adds up notably over time. That having done that calculation, that adds up. That 2 minutes a day adds up to several $1,000s at like $15 or $20 an hour. So it can really, so both sides are true in the cost equation, that if you basically say, hey, it's free, and don't consider the long-term cost, you can really end up shooting yourself in the foot. Don't forget about the time it'll take to get people on board, especially with a more complicated tool. So if you're looking to move from Microsoft Exchange to to Google Apps, for instance, the tool itself is free, but there may be a fair organizational cost in getting everybody trained up on the new tool, to buy into how to use it, or that they should use it, to get through the complaining that people really like the old thing and why are we moving, all that good stuff. And speaking of training, just make sure that you allot enough time and money to train not only on the tool itself, but what people are supposed to be doing with the tool. So often we find that people think about, they say, oh, this tool is really easy to use, people will be able to figure it out. But in fact, the processes around it are a big deal. All right. 4 more free resources. So just any questions about kind of our kind of overall conceptual model of kind of what free might mean and when free isn't free before we look at our last 4 resources here?
Also, just to let people know, we're getting near the end of the time here. Liz is going to be putting a link in the chat for the Monkey survey. And if people can take a minute and fill that out, we would greatly appreciate that. I'll put it up on the screen at the very end also. But I know a few people have to head out early, so wanted to get that to them.
Sounds great. All right, 4 more free resources to help. We're going to close on LSNTAP, but just to run through a few others first. So TechSoup, if you don't know about TechSoup, you certainly should. They have huge discounts off a whole bunch of different software, especially Microsoft software and Adobe software. So definitely check that out. They also have a lot of great information and resources, including a number of articles written by us. So check those out. N10 is they call themselves a community of nonprofit technology professionals. So it is a national membership organization for people interested in nonprofit technology. They do a lot of different convenings and trainings. They do research and advocacy for the sector. They have a big conference yearly, which is actually coming up in just a few weeks at the beginning of April in Minnesota this year.
I know there'll be several people from an organization or from our community out there. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, so and certainly if you're out there, look for Idealware. We will be apparently everywhere at the conference. let's see, they also have a huge amount of they have a great blog, which has a bunch of resources, well worth kind of checking that out, and a whole training series themselves. A resource close to my own heart, this is Idealware, which is my own organization. We provide lots and lots of free reports and articles on everything from back office. In fact, we've had a pretty good coverage of what we do here. Everything from back office through to constituent management through to online communications. We in fact do a lot in the realms of online communication and fundraising, which we didn't go into much here. We also have an ongoing training series. We have a blog. We've got a couple books. So check us out. And last but certainly not least, Brian, you want to talk a little about what's available on the LSNTAP site?
Yes, LSNTAP definitely does trainings like this, which are all put up online on our YouTube channel, so they're archived forever. We also write individual guides over particular topics. We're working on one for accessibility for websites currently. Liz and I just finished one up with basics of copyright, along with finding Creative Commons or open source available content easily online. We also do feedback-based research, so if there's things that you want us to do research on, there's no cost for it. We will go out there, find tools and answers for you, and help leverage the community overall. The largest thing we've got, though, is over there on the side, the email listservs, the LS Tech listserv, which most of you are probably on, but if any of you aren't, I definitely recommend subscribing to. Has a little over 500 members and is very responsive to people's questions, and also free.
Fantastic. And with that, we will wind up. So, Ken, anything to add in terms of resources or kind of mental model for this before we wind up? This would also be a great time to answer questions into the chat if you have it.
No, I don't really have anything to add. I think that Brian really nailed it, where through the years, I think the LSNTAP community has been able to serve as a big resource. A lot of that sharing gets or happens through the email lists that Brian mentioned as well. And it's really good to see people ask questions, because I think even for technologists such as myself, it's always an invitation to kind of challenge how we're doing our work and see if there's more efficient or more effective way to accomplish that. So definitely those lists are a great resource.
Yep.
Terrific.
And just to remind people, the link to the SurveyMonkey survey, which is another great low-cost tool, is in the chat currently. Click on it and it will let you take the survey for this.
Sounds great. And Robert has a question to see whether we have thoughts on file indexing software. So we talked a little bit about the open source kind of document management tools, OWL and Knowledge Tree, and the general gist was that although they are free and open source, there's a lot of potential work involved in them. So we weren't sure that necessarily we recommended them, or certainly that we recommended them as opposed to more, solutions that you pay a fair amount of money for. So I don't have, if document management is not what you mean by file indexing, I don't actually have any other knowledge in that area. Ken or Brian, do you know anything about file indexing?
I mean, most of that, like you said, is captured inside what you said about it, inside document management systems.
Yep.
One option for like smaller folks would be Alfresco, which also has a community version, an open source version, and a commercial version, community and commercial. They now have a cloud version that's free for, I believe, up to teams of 4 or 5. So it's just Alfresco. I'll put the link in the chat, which could be an option. Which will do. And
is it a pared down version? I know Alfresco is a super complicated kind of high end, also open source, but powerful.
The same Alfresco. They have a pared down version, exactly.
Ah, interesting. Great. Terrific.
I don't know.
Fantastic.
I know some organizations that have used like a Google search appliance to internally categorize files and then search for them, but it's rather expensive. It is extremely useful though, but not cheap.
All right. Any other questions or comments before we close for this seminar?